This is a presentation that was given at an expert panel discussion on coastal resiliency, sponsored by Senator Tony Hwang on September 28th, 2022. And this is Ash Creek's presentation. We called it Ecosystem Collapse at the Ash Creek Tidal Estuary. It's a powerful title for the presentation. Unfortunately, we weren't being sensational. It's actually a technical term for what's now occurring in Ash Creek. Before I explain what's happening, let me first just make sure that for our viewers who aren't familiar with the Ash Creek Tidal Estuary, that they understand where it's located. This view is looking upstream from the Sound. Fairfield is shown on the left. You can see Jennings Beach, the jetty that protects the channel from filling in with sand, and the South Benson Marina. Fairfield's open space is to the right of the marina. Bridgeport is on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see the sand spit, which is also called the barrier spit, and that's the more correct term for it. Also Great Marsh Island, and St. Mary's by the Sea is down on the bottom right. The Sandspit and Great Marsh Island are geographically divided between Fairfield and Bridgeport. In fact, the boundary line between the two municipalities goes right down the middle of Ash Creek. Now that we have a sense of where Ash Creek is located, let's talk about why it's important. Ash Creek is a fragile ecosystem that supports an abundance of flora and fauna. It has most recently been in the news as the pilot site for the state's new shellfish restoration program. It also acts like a sponge for floodwaters. While other communities are building living shorelines for resiliency, we don't have to do that. We have one. We just have to protect the one we have. One of the most amazing aspects of this tidal estuary is the attraction it has for migratory shorebirds. Ash Creek is a key stopover area on the eastern seaboard for migratory shorebirds. Some of these birds migrate from the Arctic Circle to as far south as Argentina. This tidal marsh is in a highly developed area, so it's remarkable that it's in such pristine condition. This is the result of community activists like ourselves who have been protecting this tidal estuary since 1967. Our own organization, the Ash Creek Conservation Association, has been protecting it since 2003. Let me explain its function as a wildlife habitat. We know migratory shorebirds are disappearing by the millions. This is due to the destruction of tidal wetlands. Ash Creek is one of the last 15 stopover sites for migratory shorebirds left in Connecticut. The mudflats at low tide allow them to feed, and the marshland gives them a place to rest. Ash Creek hosts many species of birds, not just shorebirds. Ash Creek is considered a hotspot for birds, according to eBirds, which is the app that birders use to officially log bird sightings. There are 113 species of birds documented in Ash Creek, and many of these are migratory shorebirds. Mylan Bull of Connecticut Audubon is seen on the far left. He's been leading spring and fall migratory bird walks along Ash Creek for over 20 years. Shown in the photos above, clockwise, are a snowy egret, a yellow-crowned night heron, our Great Marsh Island ospreys with their 2 fledglings, that was taken this spring. Below that, a great egret, and to the left of that, a great blue heron in flight. In the past few years, diamondback terrapins have begun to nest along Ash Creek. It's also an area where horseshoe crabs mate. And thanks to John Short of the Fairfield Shellfish Commission, it's now a shellfish restoration pilot for the state. Ash Creek is considered a natural shellfish bed by the Bureau of Agriculture, and some of you may remember when Talmadge Brothers had commercial oyster beds here. The Ash Creek Tidal Estuary is an important resource for educating students about tidal ecosystems. It's used by the Mill River Wetland Committee's River Lab, Norwalk Maritime Aquarium, as well as by local public and private schools. And in this photo, you can see two different school groups at the Ash Creek Tidal Estuary on one particular summer's day. In a densely developed area, the Ash Creek Tidal Estuary allows us the opportunity to experience the beauty of nature by kayaking, birding, or just walking along its shoreline. Let me share a few photos with you so you can experience its beauty if you haven't been there before. This is a view from the tip of the barrier spit looking north towards Great Marsh Island. You can see the Fairfield open space on the left-hand side. This is a view from Gilman Street looking towards Great Marsh Island with Fairfield open space behind it to the left. This is a view of Ash Creek from the barrier spit with salt cord grass in the foreground. Fairfield's open space is in the background on the left. Unfortunately, this area of tremendous ecological importance and beauty is projected to disappear by 2100 due to an ecological collapse, which has already begun. In less than 80 years, the tidal wetlands will be gone unless we do something now. The barrier spit is projected to disappear much sooner, by 2036. That's 14 years from now. Our scientists confirmed that once the sand spit is gone, Great Marsh Island will be the next part of the tidal estuary to disappear. And once Great Marsh Island disappears, then the rest of the tidal wetlands will follow. How did we arrive at such specific projections? Well, last year we commissioned experts to do a study to determine how much erosion was taking place. The analysis was conducted by Brian Quinn of One Nature and Dr. Stephen Danzer, a wetland soil scientist. The analysis by our scientists identified a loss of 60 linear feet of shoreline over a 10-year period from 2006 to 2016. Based on the current rate of erosion, they predicted the sand spit to disappear by 2036, or perhaps sooner if there's a major storm event. Show you the problem using aerial views. If you look on the left, that is an aerial photo of the barrier spit in 2011. The photo on the right is from 2021, 10 years later. As you can see, the sand spit has eroded significantly over those 10 years. It's shorter due to a combination of soil removal by dredging and erosion from the dredging. It's also narrower due to erosion from storms, especially if you look at the side towards the sound, which is the bottom part of the screen. And although you can't see it in the photo, the average height of the sand spit is lower, making it more vulnerable to washovers during storms. Our scientists also noticed changes to Great Marsh Island. They found that the island had lost about 25,000 square feet of intertidal marshland over a 29-year period from 1991 to 2020. They hypothesized that this may be due to increased wave action caused by the reduction in size of the sand spit. Our scientists confirmed that once the sand spit is lost, Great Marsh Island will be the next part of the tidal estuary to disappear, and once Great Marsh Island disappears, then the rest of the tidal wetlands will be destroyed. A complicating factor for the protection and restoration of this tidal wetland is the South Benson Marina's need for a navigable channel at the mouth of the tidal wetlands that has to be dredged every 5 to 7 years. In the process, part of the sand spit gets cleaved away to widen the channel. Ideally, we'd take some of the dredged material and place a thin layer of sediment over the barrier spit and Great Marsh Island, as well as other areas of erosion and the tidal wetland, to build these landforms back up. But there are federal and state laws that make placement of the dredged material back into the wetlands an onerous process. Then there is climate change, which brings with it more frequent and stronger storms. Natural storm events like Irene and Sandy have had a huge impact on erosion on the south side of the barrier spit and has lowered its height, making it more vulnerable to future washovers. Finally, marshland up and down the eastern seaboard has not been able to keep pace with rising sea levels. Our marshes are literally drowning and need additional soil deposited on them to keep up with the rate of sea level rise. Some years the dredging has been more aggressive than others. The photos above are from the 2019 dredging by Fairfield. It was a full dredging, which cost the town $700,000. You can see in the photo on the left, the tip of the barrier spit was cleaved off, and on the right, endangered botanical species were transplanted and protected. As the marina grew in size, the boats became larger, and this has required more aggressive dredging over time due to wider and deeper hulls. Sailboats in particular need up to a 7-foot draft at low tide. So the depth of the channel has been increasing, and they now dredge it to 10 feet of depth. In contrast, the Ash Creek tidal estuary is only 4 feet in depth at high tide. We'd like to see a better balance between catering to the needs of boaters and protecting this fragile tidal estuary. The barrier spit was washed over during Irene in 2011 and Sandy in 2012. It lost height as its dunes were destroyed and most of its vegetation as well, making it more vulnerable to future washovers. If you look at the left, you can see the waves washing over the sand spit, and on the right you can see the aftermath where the dunes were flattened and vegetation was destroyed. Climate change is increasing the frequency and the intensity of storms hitting our coastline. Then there are the rising sea levels. Thanks to Jim O'Donnell at Circa, we have this data from 2019 that estimates the amount of sea level rise for our Long Island Sound shoreline. With higher sea levels, we can expect increasing frequency of washovers for the barrier spit. Several experts have expressed concern about the possibility of losing the barrier spit in just one severe storm. Compounding the complex challenges facing the Ash Creek tidal estuary is the fact that it's bordered by 2 municipalities, Fairfield and Bridgeport, but not jointly managed by them. The sand spit boundary changed in 1954 to accommodate Fairfield's need to dredge the channel on an ongoing basis for the marina. Prior to that, the sand spit had been entirely in Bridgeport. Great Marsh Island was also divided, with half being owned by Fairfield as open space and the Bridgeport half owned by Aspetuck Land Trust. Ideally, this division of the tidal estuary would have resulted in joint management by Fairfield and Bridgeport, but the reality is that this fragile tidal estuary has been managed by neither municipality. It has only been recently that Fairfield's harbor master gained jurisdiction over the Ash Creek tidal estuary on the Fairfield side. We are making headway. We now have a working team consisting of Tim Bishop, Director of Fairfield's Conservation Department, Steve Layden from the Bridgeport Parks Department, and Chadwick Schroeder, Bridgeport's new sustainability manager, along with our organization. We're in the early stages of working together. Our first project was emergency seagrass plantings this spring along the spine of the barrier spit, and those are just there until we can get a restoration plan in place for the tidal wetlands, but they do serve as an emergency measure to help stabilize the barrier spit. The seagrass plantings have grown nicely despite the drought this summer. You can see on the left what the area looked like prior to the plantings, and on the right what the plantings look like now. The grass is being hand weeded by professionals. We agreed on hand weeding to avoid contaminating this sensitive area with chemicals, since terrapins nest on the sand spit and horseshoe crabs mate along the shoreline. Over the past year, our organization has met or spoken to 96 people of influence about Ash Creek's dire situation at the local, state, and federal levels. We've given dozens of presentations to different combinations of these people. We're hopeful that the panel discussion on September 28th, hosted by Senator Tony Hwang, will bring the right people together to start working on a long-term solution for the Ash Creek tidal estuary. So what can be done? Well, we would like the Connecticut DEP dredging permit to be more frequent, but less aggressive in dredging the channel. And we'd like to take the sediment from those dredgings and use it to place a thin layer of the dredged material on the sand spit in Great Marsh Island and perhaps other areas of the tidal wetlands. The placement of sediment on tidal wetlands requires additional permits and is not an easy process, so we need to start that process as soon as possible. Fairfield and Bridgeport also need to put a governing structure in place to jointly manage and protect the tidal estuary in conjunction with a nonprofit organization like ACCA. We need local ordinances enforced at the local level to prevent damage from powerboats, docks, barges, and the digging of mudflats. Finally, Fairfield and Bridgeport need to jointly go after federal funds for a large-scale restoration of the Ash Creek tidal estuary with the approval of Connecticut, DEP, and CERCA. Please go to our website to learn more about the Ash Creek tidal estuary and its wetlands, and also please join the Ash Creek Conservation Association if you'd like to be part of our efforts to save Ash Creek. Thank you so much. We've provided the website address above, saveourspit.org. Thank you so much for listening.